Welcome to Esoteric Recaps. John Valentine, a deeply anxious flyer, is mid-flight to Los Angeles, visibly shaken and experiencing an intense panic attack. Despite repeated efforts from the flight attendants to reassure him, he's overwhelmed with fear, disturbing those around him. After reluctantly returning to his seat, Valentine spots a terrifying gremlin-like creature on the plane's wing. Convinced he's witnessing a real threat, he spirals further into panic as he watches the creature damage the wing. Driven by fear and desperation, Valentine manages to acquire a handgun from an air marshal and breaks the cabin window, firing at the creature in an attempt to stop it. However, this only provokes the creature, who quickly destroys the weapon and taunts Valentine before leaping into the air just as the plane begins its emergency descent. Upon landing, a disoriented Valentine is taken off the plane in a straitjacket. While authorities dismiss him as delusional, they're soon faced with undeniable physical damage to the aircraft, suggesting that Valentine's terrifying experience may have been real after all. As Valentine is driven away in an ambulance, the driver plays Midnight Special by Creedence Clearwater Revival, then eerily asks Valentine, "Want to see something really scary?" The scene fades to a starry night, leaving viewers unsettled and questioning the line between reality and madness. Bill Connor, an unapologetic bigot who holds bitter views against various racial and ethnic groups, is angered and humiliated after being passed over for a promotion. Venting at a bar, he spews racial slurs and hateful comments, which draw hostile looks from nearby patrons. Ignoring their reactions, he storms out, his anger reaching a boiling point. Upon stepping outside, Bill finds himself transported not to the bar's parking lot but into the middle of Vichy, France during World War II. Mystifyingly perceived by those around him as Jewish, he's pursued by SS officers who fire at him, wounding his arm. In a desperate attempt to escape, Bill hides in an apartment, only to be betrayed by its resident, who alerts the German soldiers to his presence. Cornered and shot at, he tries to balance on the building's narrow ledge, eventually slipping and tumbling down, landing, unexpectedly, in another nightmare. Now, Bill finds himself in the 1950s rural South, where he's perceived as an African-American man targeted by the Ku Klux Klan. Terrified, he tries to reason with his pursuers, but his pleas fall on deaf ears. Realizing he can't escape their fury, he fights back, injuring a Klansman before fleeing. Desperately wounded and weakened, he dives into a pond, only to be transported again. This time, he's thrust into the chaos of the Vietnam War, now seen as a Vietnamese civilian amid combat. The threat of death is immediate and intense. American soldiers throw a grenade, and the blast sends Bill reeling back into Vichy, France, sealing his fate. Bill is promptly apprehended by the SS officers who had initially pursued him. They force him into a freight car with other Holocaust prisoners. As the train begins to move, Bill, now realizing the horrors of persecution firsthand, screams helplessly, calling out for his friends at the bar who, ironically, can't hear him. The final tragic image of Bill's entrapment is the train fading into the distance, heading toward a grim and unknown fate. Helen Foley, a gentle, well-intentioned teacher, stops at a rural diner on her journey to a new teaching job. Here she observes a young boy named Anthony, who attracts the ire of several drunken patrons after accidentally switching off their TV. Helen soon leaves but encounters Anthony again when she accidentally damages his bike in the parking lot. Feeling responsible, she offers to drive him home, unknowingly stepping into a reality far darker than she could have imagined. Anthony's house is large, isolated, and filled with an odd assortment of people who seem unusually fearful. He introduces Helen to his family members, Uncle Walt, his sister Ethel, and his parents. Yet their forced smiles and palpable anxiety make Helen uneasy. As Anthony guides Helen around the home, he introduces her to a silent, eerie figure he calls his other sister, Sarah, whose mouth has been erased in an apparent punishment, a detail that Helen overlooks. During dinner, Helen grows further disturbed as she observes the family's strained efforts to appease Anthony with his favorite foods, only for Ethel to suddenly shout and her plate to crash to the ground. This unexplained tension hints at the control Anthony holds over them, a control that soon reveals its terrifying depth. When Helen attempts to leave, she learns the horrifying truth. Anthony possesses unimaginable psychic abilities, wielding the power to alter reality at will and punish anyone who displeases him. Anthony insists Helen stay to watch Uncle Walt's magic show, a performance that ends with the summoning of a demonic rabbit monster. The family confesses that they were each lured into Anthony's world and now cannot escape. Helen uncovers a desperate note from Ethel, pleading for rescue from the monster that Anthony is. Realizing she has betrayed him, Anthony mercilessly banishes Ethel into the TV, where she is killed by a grotesque, dragon-like cartoon character that devours her. With the family unable to satisfy his impossible expectations, Anthony's rage leads him to erase them and the entire house, leaving Helen and himself in an endless void. Faced with the overwhelming power of this child, Helen takes a different approach, gently persuading him to use his abilities for good and promising to be his genuine friend. Anthony, pacified by her kindness, conjures up Helen's car and a pastoral, peaceful landscape. Together, they drive off toward Helen's new home, surrounded by fields of flowers. Like and subscribe for new video notifications. Thanks.